Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Pack that.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay. Here to talk some Packers this morning on this glorious January 17th. Is it Friday already, Tim? Did we make it to Friday, man?
Friday.
Good morning.
How does it feel like a Tuesday, man? I don't know. It just feels like a Tuesday to me. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to dive into today. We're going to take a little walk around social media just a second. A couple of posts that piqued my interest and wanted to kind of dive into them a touch. We're also going to hit on the tackle market and free agency, offensive tackles, as well as the offensive tackles in the NFL draft this year coming up, at least projected prospects in the NFL draft. Now, if we have time to get to that, if not, we'll just roll it into tonight or whenever we do our next show. So, it's going to be a lot of fun, man, as we continue to dive into these positions. After that, we'll look at linebacker a little bit, as we know there's going to be at least one, maybe two vacancies there on the active 53-man roster. So, Tim, you got anything you want to hit on before we get cranked up here, man? Anything at all on the forefront of your mind other than some diesel?
No, yeah, I'm just trying to hit this jitter juice and wake up a little. No, I think it's good. We should continue our surface scratch before we do our deep dive into the free agent market and, of course, the draft. So I'm ready to roll, man. Let's hit the news.
Heck yeah, sounds good, man. I'll get that pulled up. Let me pull up my YouTube main stream here. I forgot to do that, so we're on our P's and Q's this morning, boy. We're ready to roll. I was going to put a poll question up. I think I'll save it for tonight, but the poll question is going to be essentially, what's the chances that you think Jair will return to the Packers? I want to kind of get a feel for the fans where they're at, because you see some people and they're, they seem to think, yeah, he's going to be back. And there's others that think he's completely gone. It's pretty wild how everyone's on opposite spectrums there in that regard. So I would like to kind of, see what the fan base thinks. And if we do a show tonight, I think that would be the better show to do that poll question. So we'll do that. Let's do this. I'm going to pop a screen grab up here real quick, guys. We're going to hit on a video that was on Good Morning Football today on NFL Network. And just make sure you guys can see it. We're good. All right. This was Peter Schrager interviewing Maxx Crosby. You guys know Maxx Crosby is one of those names that this offseason keeps getting thrown around a lot, like he may be on his way out of the Raiders. I know many people drew the parallel. Many people drew the parallel when Josh Jacobs said, yeah, I'm going to go out there and try to get some guys in the building, essentially is what he's saying, do a little bit of recruiting for free agents, or maybe even potential trade players that could be traded from their current team. Many people went, okay, he's probably talking about the Raiders. You got a lot of ex-teammates over there, right? So Maxx Crosby gets thrown to the forefront. Let's hear what Maxx Crosby has to say here from Good Morning Football. Again, they tweeted this out on their account at GMFB, where he's talking about his rehab process, and then he briefly mentions kind of his status with the Raiders. Here we go.
Tell us about where you are with your rehab, what time in the timeline, and then if you can, tell us where you are mentally with the state of you and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, the rehab's been going incredible. It'll be about a 4 to 4.5 month deal till I'm fully healthy and cleared. So that's going incredible. I'm already lifting, rehabbing, in the building every day, getting after it. So I'll be walking next week. I've been rolling around here on a scooter.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely been an adjustment, but it's just part of the process. So I'm doing incredible on that end. So yeah, I'm feeling really good about it and where we're at. But yeah, future of the Raiders, obviously, I think everybody kind of knows what's going on. I mean, like I said, I'm there every morning. We just talked about it, and it's very eerie around there, I would say. A lot of new changes and things like that. Obviously with Coach AP, getting fired and Telesco as well. First off, I want to, shout out to those guys. They were incredible, to me during my time there. But yeah, for me, I'm just focused on the day to day. A lot of things are out of my control. You know what I mean? I'm going to sit back and wait and see what happens. But I'm just focused on my rehab right now, and we'll take it one step at a time.
All right, so there you go. That was Maxx Crosby on Good Morning Football here this morning, talking to Peter Schrager. I believe it was this morning, 51 minutes ago. So, the way I kind of take those comments is, he says it's out of his control. Obviously, he can't force a trade. It doesn't sound like he's forcing a trade either, Kind of sounds like he's content with being with the Raiders. And listen, there's very few people that don't like Las Vegas. I'm one of those few people. Personally, I don't like the culture, the whole everything it stands for, if you will. But some people enjoy that, right? It sounds like, to me, Tim, I want to get your thoughts on it in the chat as well. Kind of sounds like he's pretty content with Vegas, but he's not holding out the idea that they may differ and want to trade him and pick up a bunch of draft picks if once this new regime comes in,
I mean, he's been pretty public about his love for the Raiders throughout his career. That's a dude that's, I don't know, almost like, we all know Charles Woodson, gave us a few years of great service, helped us win a Super Bowl, but that dude went into the Hall of Fame or Raider. There are certain guys that are, I don't want to say Raider for life, but kind of have that mentality. So I kind of got that vibe too, that, he's talking about the change that's happening around him. He seems pretty content where he's at. However, we're just reading between the lines. And at the end of the day, business is business. It's funny how quickly things change. We always talk about not for long. I mean, I remember Antonio Pierce was supposed to be the answer, the answer to your Josh McDaniels problem. And he was the future. And boy, did that team look good when he took over. And wow, have things changed in a very short amount of time. So I don't know. I would agree with the sentiment that I don't think Crosby's trying to force his way out of there.
Right.
Doesn't mean he's not open to getting the hell out of there. So,
he could be in the background going, boy, I hope this gets done.
Yeah, right. So exactly.
Could be happening. And you talked about Josh McDaniels. I think it's hilarious. He was the problem. He leaves. They still got the problem. So, he definitely wasn't the solution. I would agree there. But I think it is funny, too, that one of the people that wanted Antonio Pierce as the head coach was Davante Adams, right? Davante Adams was really standing on it. And now he's not even with the Raiders. So just what a wild organization. I expect things to get better in Vegas because of Tom Brady having part ownership, and they say he's got a lot of say in what they're going to be doing from a football standpoint. I think he'll be able to help a lot in that regard. Number one Packer fan, is there a snowball chance as hell that Green Bay could get him? That wasn't really the reason I showed the video, number one Packer fan. It was just many of these type of transactions, whether they happen or not, they kind of drive the offseason. The trickle-down effect that happens. If a Maxx Crosby does get traded, right? Yep. Now that changes maybe a draft need for the Raiders. That, that would reduce a draft need for another team and all those things. Now,
so there's exactly a snowball's chance in hell. That's exactly the odds. Exactly that.
and listen, it's a boring way to Packer fan, but the way I do it, I go off precedent. When was the last time Brian Gutekunst traded for an edge rusher? I don't think it's ever happened, right? Okay. When was the last time the Packers traded for an edge rusher? I don't think it's happened, right? When was the last time they traded for a player that was going to be top 5 paid at their respective position? I don't know if it's happened, right? So you go off precedent. You got to, again, I know it's boring because anything can happen. I got you. I completely understand that. But that's just kind of how I run things through the filter. That's this whole projection this season. When I said 10 to 13 wins, right? I'm looking at it going, the youngest team in the league has never won the Super Bowl. Again, precedent, right? Doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean Maxx Crosby doesn't end up in Green Bay. I just think it's highly unlikely. And another tweet that came out here, Tim, I'm going to show this. Now, listen, I understand that this account catches a lot of flack on Twitter. IKE Packers Podcast.
Just a bit.
I've never had a problem with them, right? Never had a problem with them. We follow each other. We've engaged in, DMs and stuff like that. In no way, shape, or form is this quote tweet I put out trying to dunk on them. I just simply laid out, here's the roadblock for what their tweet says, okay? At least in my eyes. And I wanted to talk about it and give them a shout out at IKE_Packers. Again, most of my listeners are going, I hate them, Clayton. That's totally cool. Totally cool. You have the right to hate whoever you want to hate. I personally have had no problems with them. Now, I run my account very different than theirs. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. But who's to say I'm right and they're wrong, right? But it said, would you be open to trading Rashan Gary in a deal for Myles Garrett, Maxx Crosby, or Micah Parsons? Assume a first-round pick would also be a part of the package. So when you say a first-round pick would be a part of the package, I'm assuming they're meaning we would trade a first-round pick and Rashan Gary for one of these guys, right? Seeing that everybody in Packerland thinks that Rashan Gary is just all of a sudden horrible. I'm assuming that surely they're not thinking, and again, this isn't IKE thinking this way. I'm just saying a good chunk of the fan base pretends like Rashan Gary is a bad football player. So you're saying that another team would give you Micah Parsons, Maxx Crosby, or Myles Garrett and a first-round pick for Rashan Gary? I imagine it was probably the other direction, right? But what I said was if Rashan Gary was traded, the Packers would face a $25 million cap penalty in 2025 to get rid of their leader in sacks, quarterback pressures, and defensive line run stops. You would be trading away, Tim, your most productive player on your defensive line and absorbing a $25 million cap penalty this year to acquire one of these guys that I do believe are a step above Rashan Gary from a defensive edge standpoint. Micah Parsons, I think, if I were to be honest and grade these out, I think Micah's a better player than Gary. I think Max is a better player than Gary. I think Myles Garrett is probably a better player than both of those other two guys. Different styles, but, all get the job done. So I just wanted to point that out. Is there something I'm missing here? And I know IKE likes to put stuff like this out to get engagement and just get fans talking about it. There's nothing wrong with that. Just want to get your take on it in the chat as well, because what I see –
football team.
Here's what's crazy. Yeah, exactly. Like if you go get Maxx Crosby, or let's say you go and get one of these guys, right? And you had to pay them
on the field with Rashan.
Yes, that's the answer.
Instead of
right.
I feel like making that move would just kind of. And granted, you're right. Like there's a handful of these guys. Well, yeah, you pretty much put these guys a click or two above Rashan in the grand scheme of. Our own little PFF rating or whatever you want to call it. But I don't feel like getting rid of Rashan and adding one of these guys makes us, oh my gosh, we're going to the Super Bowl now. I think if you were talking about packaging a deal and moving maybe another player or two and a draft pick, trying to get a Myles Garrett or a Crosby or a Micah Parsons. And now we got both of these guys on the field at the same time. Now that might get us over the hump, but I don't see getting rid of basically like the heart and soul of your defense, right. Other than Xavier McKinney. It's pretty much Rashan, and it just doesn't make sense. I don't see us getting better. I'm with Packers Kingdom. Get Gary some help.
Right. To me, that's what makes the most sense, man. It really does. So like you said, Packers Kingdom, get Gary some help. Let's see here. Drew D says Gary plus a first for Myles Garrett, probably, but not the other guys. Exactly. So there's some fans that think you would trade Rashan Gary and a first-round pick plus eat a $25 million cap penalty to get one of these guys. That's just insane.
We are not the New York Jets. Stop.
Thank God, right? Randy Cleaver says, watch Gary play. He's going through 2 or 3 people on almost every play. It's so true. Number one Packer fan, too many people playing Madden, LOL. Where's Emilio when you need him, right?
He's playing Madden. That's where he is.
That's exactly where he's at. Or he's sleeping because he stayed up too late playing Madden.
Yeah, exactly. He's late for work this morning now, playing too much college football.
I just wanted to hit on that real quick, and I'm afraid to look in the comments or maybe somebody cussing me out in there, so we'll just hold off on that live on the show. But that was something that kind of piqued my interest. Let's go a little bit further back in the chat now. We had a couple questions, a couple comments here earlier. Elijah Gwynn says, if Hafley leaves, is there any chance LaFleur does not hire Saleh as defensive coordinator, aside from Saleh getting a head coach offer, which I haven't heard anything about? So again, if Hafley leaves, is there any chance that LaFleur does not hire Saleh as the defensive coordinator? I think there's zero chance. That would have to be at the top of his list, Tim, is to hire Robert Saleh as the DC. He said, aside from Saleh getting a head coach offer, which I haven't heard anything about. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think that Matt LaFleur did a hell of a job preparing himself this time around, as opposed to waiting until coaches get promotions in other cities and him having to kind of fill those gaps. What he's doing is staying one step ahead and bringing in guys that just lost a job. Hey, Come in and be our consultant. Get you familiar with the area. Get you falling in love with the great city of Green Bay and the people in it, along with just the historic, the pageantry, the tradition of Lambeau Field and what Green Bay Packers represent. Get them to kind of fall in love with it. That way, if there's a lateral move on the market for pretty much the same amount of money, you probably want to stay in Green Bay. I think that's his top choice. I think that Matt LaFleur's choice for DC is his first choice is Jeff Hafley. And if Hafley leaves, Robert Saleh will be his DC. Tim, what do you think about that there?
100% agree.
All right, that's it.
No, boring answer. Sorry, but
no, it's good. It's good.
100% agree.
Yeah. It just I don't see a scenario where he just lets him walk. I really don't. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got here in the chat really quick. Number one Packer fan says, I usually hate mock drafts, but I am so excited about this offseason, I might just dive in both feet this year. Here's the thing, too, Packer fan. You do you, man. You fan how you want to fan. I do notice that those people that get mad when others do mock drafts, like nobody's asking, hey, do you mind if I do a mock draft? But you're inserting your opinion as if it means something. If you like doing mock drafts, do them, man. And the more mock drafts you do, the more information you're going to gather on the draft. People like to roll their eyes and say mock drafts are silly. You know that every NFL GM are doing mock drafts right now. They're walking through every single scenario, even pre-Senior Bowl, post-Senior Bowl, pre-Combine, post-Combine, pre-Pro Day, post-Pro Day, all those things. They're constantly gathering information. When the mock drafts first took place, there was a guy, and I can't remember his name. I'm pretty sure he ran a funeral home. This is way back in the day. And he would do the first mock drafts, and he would actually publish them, right? And Michael Lombardi told this story. NFL GMs got that NFL draft preview every year because that guy was so in-depth at walking through and looking at different scenarios. They used it as a tool. So anyone who tries to shame you over the mock drafts, just move on. Now, listen, if we get into mock drafts and someone doesn't want to watch that or listen to it, I completely understand that too. There's been many times I'm like, I ain't in a mock draft mood. I'm moving on to the next podcast, right? I completely understand that. But just wanted to point out, don't let anybody else steer you from what you want to do as a fan, man. That's the way I see that for sure. Drew D in the chat. I know we don't need a tight end, but Tyler Warren was used in many ways and could be a great fit in LaFleur's system. Thoughts? Listen, I know we don't need one either, Drew, but I'm not sold on Musgrave. That's me. Tucker Kraft, absolutely. Well, you're going to need to run a lot of 12 personnel. The reality is we were having to lean on our number 3 tight end last year. So when we talk about needing, if a guy falls to you in the draft, and no matter where you're picking, if you look up and he's 1, the best player available on the board, and 2, you look up and go, all right, he's probably better than Musgrave. He may start over Musgrave. Well, guess what? You just improved your team tremendously because you're in 12 personnel 25 to 30% of the time, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a tight end. I don't think any position is off the table if they have a higher grade than the other players around them on the board. And the way that works is they're typically done, everybody scored, and then you've got tiers of those similar scores. And then you got what Daniel Jeremiah calls cluster busters. If you got a cluster of prospects, right, and you're sticking and picking, and let's say with the 23rd pick, you got 6 guys in your top tier of talent. Now you've got a second level you go to and say, okay, what are our cluster busters? What are we looking for? Like for one, it might be, how do they play on third down, right? Another might be, okay, we got 3 receivers in this group. Let's break up that cluster of receivers. Let's go to catch radius, or let's go to yards of separation, whatever it is they deem most important, right? It could be size, could be that type of thing, could be age, right? That could be a cluster buster. So, I wouldn't roll out drafting a tight end. And again, I'm not sold on Musgrave. And guys, I thought Musgrave was going to be a much better pro than Tucker Kraft. That was my opinion. So please don't think this is, man, Clayton's always hated Musgrave. I thought Musgrave will be the one. Kraft is kind of an athletic freak. He'll be fun, a little project. Boy, Kraft soared right to the top, and that dude's a top 5 tight end.
I remember when we were having those early conversations after that draft, and then it was like, hey, this Tucker Kraft, I don't know. He looks like he's developing pretty quick, and then boom, Tuck Norris. Yep. You are a Packer. I love it. I'm with you. I can't wait to scratch the surface on that. That might actually be kind of fun, is to look at free agent tight ends and then also the draft prospects. So I know that's on our list, not as high up on the priority list as some of our other position groups, but I think you're right, man. I'm not sold on Musgrave either. Long term. That's not to say he can't have a breakout year. He's dealt with injury, things like that. He's had setbacks, so I guess we'll see what happens. But I'm not opposed at all to adding another tight end to this group. I think we all know the Tyler Davis experience is probably over with. And I don't, we know they liked Fitzpatrick, but there's question marks there with depth in that tight end room. Beyond Ben Sims and Tucker Kraft, you start getting question marks with some of these other guys. So I think it's worth a look for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Josh Martin, do you think if Saleh is still here, that he can recruit DJ Reed to come here for less than market value? It's possible, but when you say less than market value, and DJ Reed is one of the corners that's on my short list in free agency. We've got Carlton Davis from Detroit, Byron Murphy from Minnesota, and DJ Reed from the Jets. In my opinion, I would probably rather have, I think I actually listed them out here in this order. I would rather have Carlton Davis, then Byron Murphy, and then DJ Reed. That's me personally. But yeah, I think there's a chance of that. But when you say less than market value, it just depends on what you mean by market value, because you're looking at average annual value, and then you can look at the guaranteed money. You can lower the average annual value for a little more guaranteed money, right? So it depends on what you're talking to market. But I think what Josh is saying here, or asking Tim, is, hey, do you think Saleh could help sway DJ Reed to come to the Packers if there's similar offers? I think that's a real thing. I do.
I don't think there's any player in the NFL that's going to take less than market value, honestly. But I think there is truth to what you're saying. Can he recruit Reed to come here in general,
Right.
And maybe, like you said, get your market value or fair market value, but team-friendly contract. Spread that money out accordingly. I think that's a realistic possibility.
Yeah, I think so
and
too.
if Saleh's still here, right?
Right, exactly. Exactly. If Halfley stays, I think Saleh's gone. I don't see any scenario where Saleh is not at least a defensive coordinator in the National Football League.
Right.
I
Because
just
if you're Bob Saleh, that's your only path to ever getting a head coaching shot again, is to go be a DC somewhere, help a team get a championship or something, and then all of a sudden you're on that head coaching candidate list again at some point. But right now, I don't think anyone wants to touch Bob Saleh after the debacle in New York.
Yeah. If I were to play GM for the Chicago Bears right now, this would be my choice. It would be, and actually this goes hand in hand with what number one Packer fan said. The Bears apparently rolled out the red carpet for McCarthy. Let it happen, because I want this rivalry to be epic. That would increase the rivalry big time. If I were in charge of doing the hiring for the Chicago Bears, my pick would be Ben Johnson, head coach, throw the book at him, okay, and hire Robert Saleh as my defensive coordinator. That would be the way I would go. Now, if Ben Johnson is showing a little, he's a little hesitant to go to Chicago, rightfully so. It's been a trash organization forever, right? And let's say he goes to Dallas or somewhere else, Vegas, wherever it is. Mike McCarthy would be my second choice. And the same thing would apply. Mike McCarthy, head coach, Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator. Tim, if that were to happen, I am not.
The Bears would still suck, but they would suck less.
I'm not going to BS anybody on Twitter. I'd be going, all right, boys, brace yourself. Now they're going in the right direction.
Can you imagine next year if 4 out of the 7 NFC playoff teams were NFC North teams?
Wild. Absolutely wild. So, again, I hope it doesn't happen. But if I'm running the Bears, that's the step I'm taking. It really is.
Well, good thing you're not running the Bears, and they have the people running their organization that they do, so they'll probably screw this up.
It seems like General Manager Ryan Poles is protected, but if it were me, I'd go hire John Eric Sullivan too, from the Packers. I'd literally go, all right, we're going to build this thing from the ground up. That's where they messed up, and this is something that Lombardi talked about all the time, and it was a big Bill Belichick kind of thought, was you've got to have alignment within your organization. What I mean by that is the GM has got to be aligned with the coach. If you hire this GM who has this philosophy on how to build a roster, and you got this coach who believes in this type of team that he's going to put together and this type of culture and this type of schematics, they're not going to gel well together. That's why so many of the Patriots coaches have sucked going somewhere else, is because most of the time, probably not all the time, but most of the time, they're leaving this culture with this GM of Bill Belichick at the time, and they're going into another organization that's got a separate thought process on how to build a roster and a GM, and there's not alignment. And then lo and behold, that coach all of a sudden sucks at coaching football, and that GM's gone too. Well, it's not that either of them were really bad at what they do. It's just you're not a good match for each other. So if you were to take a John Eric Sullivan who was raised in the Packer process, right, and you slap him in as a general manager, and then you bring in Mike McCarthy, who is all familiar with the Packer process. He won a Super Bowl and turned the franchise completely around using that process. And then you turn someone like Robert Saleh loose on the defense and kind of implement all this new age, the way that the Pete Carroll cover 3 has evolved over the years. I think you're on the right track. But again, I hope that does not happen. I really hope that does happen. Prince in the chat, those same podcasters will run a crappy draft day stream with plenty of sideshow and not much focus while drunk. PTA did it up right in 2024. Every pick tracked for the main event. I appreciate that, Prince. We, again, man, everything we do on this channel, this show, we try to do it from the sense of what would we do different if we ran a show, if we ran a podcast. And that's how we've ended up with this. So it's not so much to do with us as it is what the fans want. And again, that's what we want. It was like, I've been right there with you. I've sat and watched draft shows, and I'm like, we're not even talking about the draft. They got like Pat McAfee. I love Pat McAfee's show. Love it. But his draft spectacular first year was awesome. Every year they get a little bit wilder, and they got people in there juggling and stuff. They got singers in-house. Like, I didn't tune into the draft to listen to a damn concert. I tuned in the draft to cut up with the boys, laugh a little bit, and get all the draft information in real time, right? So that's kind of what we try to do. So probably suck.
Man, do I have to cancel the rappers that I booked? I
Yes.
got all of Emilio's favorite rappers for the draft show.
Yeah.
All right, I'll cancel that. Don't worry.
Get Rusty Cheeks or whatever his name, what was it? Rusty
It's
Hurt.
Lil something. Lil
Rusty
something.
Cheeks. Jacob's new name is Rusty Cheeks. All right, we're going to go in that direction now. So, all right, something else. The Davante Adams information and everything that's been kind of rolling around. Eli Berkovitz tweeted this out and put, it was BetUS's odds. It says Davante Adams back to the Packers plus 145 as a yes. Okay. I did not see if that's the best odds. I can try to look that up real quick, Tim, if you want to speak on this for a second. But I can hop over to BetUS, and I'm going to see if I can find, are there any other teams and what are the odds in that regard. But what do you think about this, man, as we get a little bit closer to are they going to make something happen, right? How are you feeling about it? Give me a percentage. I need to know a percentage and why you're there on Davante Adams.
Man, coin flip at this point. I mean, to hear Tay talk about it, it gives you hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normally a player will kill any rumors that he thinks are ridiculous. So clearly Tay doesn't think this is ridiculous. He was asked point blank about the Packers. We all saw the Kay Adams interviews, and he didn't shy away from it. He didn't shy away from publicly stating that he felt like they needed a veteran wideout. So I think it's a 50-50 chance that, the Packers at least try and make a move to get him. Now, whether or not they can get a deal done, that's a different story. But, hey, Goody's fleeced the Jets before. I'm sure there's a realm of possibility that exists where we could fleece the Jets again. If anyone could do it, it's the old Goot master. So, I don't know. I'm not I'm a gambler, but I'm not a sports bettor, so I'm not big on the odds, but I think it's a coin flip that we get Tay. I'd say 50-50 at this point.
Got it. Looking at it here, so there's no other teams mentioned. It's just one simple prop bet here. It says, will Davante Adams start with the Green Bay Packers if not playing for the New York Jets in 2025, 2026? There's a lot going on in that bet there. Obviously, yes is plus 140. No is minus 190. So the odds are, according to BetUS and the odds they set, the odds are that he will not play for the Packers. All right. But it is pretty darn close. So that's how that bet is kind of drawn up there. Drew D in the chat, Adams might get cut to save cap space, and then we could sign him as a free agent. That's most likely what will happen, Drew. I believe that, because you remember Garrett Wilson got a little bit little bit antsy there at the end because Tay was getting all these targets, and I know that has more to do with Aaron than it does probably the team. But the reality is Tay Adams' cap hit this year is like 30-some million, and it's a large majority salary. So if they cut him, they can free up $30 million in cap space, right? That's probably what will happen, I would imagine.
The Jets certainly need all the cap space they can get.
And if that happens, Tim, then guess what? Now you got to look up and go, okay, yeah, the Packers would be interested for the right price, but there's going to be other teams. I'm telling you, there's going to be teams that are close. I'll tell you when it comes to mind for me, Kansas City.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City went to him and say, hey, man, you want to play for a little less? Come over here and win your ring finally. I see stuff like that happening. You know, maybe Buffalo would rate. You know what I'm saying? Like you got a bunch of teams that are like right there in the top 4. You know?
Well, Kansas City's notorious for that, right? I mean, look, they brought in D-Hop this year, you know, kind of gave him a resurgence. You know, that's kind of a formula too. They've had this for a while, right? They are not afraid to bring in, you know, whoever at wideout, you know, veteran receiver to help them along the way. Clearly Andy Reid's got things humming over there. We know this. It doesn't matter. You and I could go there and, you know, play slot receiver and boundary, and we'd probably find success in that system. So that kind of scares me though, like what Drew D is saying, because you're right. If Tay hits free agency, now we're in this like bidding war situation with multiple other teams, and I just don't know how aggressively the Packers can really pursue Tay. So, but at the end of the day, if he becomes a free agent, then it's kind of like, where does Tay really want to play also? Because I think at this point, you know, Tay's made some pretty good money playing this game. I don't think he's you know, looking for his next meal or anything. Pretty sure his kids will have money in their college funds and everything looks good for the future of his family. So, you know, maybe he is willing to take a, you know, team friendly kind of arrangement just to go after a championship, because really that's pretty much all that's missing from his resume at this point in his career. So anything's possible.
Definitely. Rel in the chat says it'd be hilarious for us, but at the same time, it would make Goody a guru GM. Could you imagine if he traded Tay to the Raiders, right? And then Tay ends up at the Jets and they cut him out, right? And he doesn't have to give anything back to get Tay back here for the last year or two of his career. That would be wild for sure. Let's see here. Judah Time in the chat. If Kenny and Rodgers got a third contract, then Tay Adams needs to get his before KC gets him. So
in all caps too, pissed off typing that. I love it.
Judah Time on board with the Davante Adams coming back to Green Bay for sure. And Drew D says that's what the Patriots used to do as well. Absolutely. Grab these players and, hey, you want to play for a ring, play for a little less, but we'll get you a Super Bowl, right? That's kind of how Kansas City, I feel, they're in that same range. Now, another team that comes to mind is like Baltimore, somebody like that, Tim, you know, that would be really appealing for a player that wants to go out there and get that ring. Anyway, that's your walk around Twitter there. Just wanted to hit on some of the topics that kind of came across my feed and get your all's take on it. Appreciate y'all taking the time to do that with us. Let's start to dive into the tackles a little bit, Tim. That sound good to you, man?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. Let's start with the free agent tackles. And again, we already looked through guard a little bit there. We're just going to kind of take a walk around the league and see, okay, who else is available, and specifically at the tackle position. The number 8 ranked free agent, according to PFF's early board here, is Ronnie Stanley. He is 30 years old. He'll be 31 by the time the league year starts. And he was a 70.4 last year. He did play 1,163 snaps. They're projecting his contract to be 2 years, $20 million per. Next, you got Cam Robinson, tackle. He was with Minnesota this year. His projection is 3 years, $18.7 million. He's declined. According to PFF, his play has declined every year, Tim. 67.2. Then he went down to a 65.4. Now he's down to a 63.2. That's a player I honestly have zero interest in signing there. He's 29 years old. Tyron Smith out of with the Jets. You know, he went over and played with the Jets for a year. He kind of made his hay with Dallas back in the day. He's 34 years old. His PFF grade last year was a 73.7. The year before was an 83.7. So you've seen some decline there. And he's projected to only get 1 year, $8 million. You know, I'm not opposed to a signing like that. If for some reason, the only way it would make sense is if the front office said, you know what, we want Zach Tom to be our center. If that's the case, then you would go out and get a tackle. I just don't see that happening, to be honest with you. I'm looking for guys that could potentially play on the inside, that type of thing. Next is Alaric Jackson from the LA Rams. This is one that piqued my interest in. He's 26 years old, right? The projection is 4 years, $14.5 million per, all right? And he's gotten better every year since 2022, 64, 66, and then last year a 77. You also throw in the extra added value that he played for the Rams, which obviously pretty much run the same offense that we run. At least the terminology is exactly the same. So that's a player that kind of piques my interest for the right price.
He's a left tackle, correct?
Let's see. I'm not paying top dollar for him. Are they even going to show it? They may not show it here.
I mean, it says protecting
the blind side
of Stafford, so we're assuming left.
It would have to be then. Yeah, there's no reason to fact check that, I believe.
So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to think he could kick one slide over to left guard.
That's a good point.
You know, assuming that Big E is no longer our left guard and he's our center. And I don't think we're running away from Rasheed Walker at left tackle the way that guy's been available and been playing. So yeah, you're right. Maybe this guy could be he's kind of in that sweet spot too. He's not a young buck, but he's not an old dog. Right. I could see the Packers, my spidey senses are on alert as well, Clayton. And then you look at the grades too, like he had a pretty good year last year. Yeah. Snaps were down a little, but yeah, maybe he's one of those guys, not a swing tackle, but a swing tackle in the sense that, you could stick him at guard if you need to.
Yeah. And his PFF win above replacement went from 0.08 all the way to a 0.26. So it more than doubled there from 23 to 24. So he's the only tackle of this list that I said, you know what, I'd be interested in him, give him a 3-year deal. But again, not at the clip of $14.5 million if he gets that much, right?
Right.
If you can get him south of $10 million, yeah, I don't know if that'll happen. Tackles are very, very valuable, obviously. Next, in the 47 spot, you got Dan Moore Jr., 26 years old, played in Pittsburgh. His PFF grades going from 22 to 24 was 62, 54, 67. I don't think there's anything to write home with there, especially 3 years, $13 million is what they're projecting. So anything you want to add to these tackles here, as obviously it's kind of slim pickings in terms of the top side of free agency. But again, the one that grabs my attention is definitely Alaric Jackson there from the LA Rams.
I would agree with that. Can you go back up to the top? That was the one thing I noticed about Ronnie Stanley here. Steady Eddie, look at the grades.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're getting the same. You know what you're getting with a guy like this, 100%. So he kind of catches my attention a little bit too. Again, a little bit older, but yeah, it seems kind of slim pickings here in the free agent market.
Yeah, definitely. And he is a true left tackle. Obviously, played in Baltimore his entire career. I kind of expect Baltimore to bring him back, to be honest with you. But, yeah, man, I mean, he showed pass blocking grade 79.6, run blocking 63.4, overall grade of 71. Like you said, man, he has been as steady as they come. And there's some value to that, right? You can have a guy that's highly rated one year, and if you look in a 4-year span, 3 of those years he was cheeks and he had one good year. I'd rather have that dude that's grading out in the upper 60s, lower 70s consistently because you kind of know what you got, right?
Yeah. So, the downside with Stanley, though, like you said, is he's left tackle through and through. No snaps at the guard positions. You're not moving that guy around. You sign him, you're bringing him in to play left tackle. So
right,
maybe I'm out on him.
No, I'm with you on that. So again, that's kind of where we're at there in terms of offensive tackle. The only one that made my list is Alaric Jackson. So we've still got the tackle rookies we're going to start on tonight. If we do a show, I'll let y'all know as soon as I decide whether we're going to go grab dinner this evening or not. But in terms of the tackles, it's slim picking on the free agent market. Not that you would be crazy about going and getting a tackle either. And here's the thing too, like when you go sign a veteran player, it's less likely they're going to kick the guard, in my opinion. You tend to do that with the younger players, get them acclimated. Some of these guys are going to look up and go, do I really want to go play guard, or would I rather go back to Baltimore and play tackle, right? That's a real thing as well. So what I've got now is my PFF free agent list. Understand, we're going to do the rookie tackles tonight or on our next show. And then also we're we're going to look at the linebackers. We got a few linebackers on this list too. We got 3 free agents and 5 linebackers in the top 100. Again, I don't expect both McDuffie and Eric Wilson to return. I would love to see Eric Wilson back for the right price, but I think you're going to have at least 1, maybe 2 spots you got to fill there. There's a couple guys I'm really excited about in the draft here, and we're going to dive into them a little bit deeper. But so keep in mind, this will include the linebackers I like too. It'll be a little bit of a spoiler. But here is my big board for free agency, okay? I only came up with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 players that I really liked, Tim. Number 1 on that list, and it's in no particular order. What I mean by that, guys, I've got them rated by, or I've got them in order of PFF grade, but please don't take this as, hey, that's my favorite one. I'm just going to simply do it in the order of the PFF grade. Guess who's number 1 on the list for PFF grade, Tim, on my short free agent list? Like, I'd be okay if they brought him in.
Oh, I don't know who.
Bobby Wagner.
You don't think he's going to retire after I keep wanting to call them the Redskins.
I know it. I've seen you.
I don't care. I'm calling them Redskins. If the Redskins win the Super Bowl, I think the further they go, I think the more likely it is Bobby hangs it up this year. Yeah, but hey, I hear you, dude. Yeah. We could have had him last year, right?
Yeah. Now,
can you imagine Bobby out there like when Quay got hurt, and you got Bobby Wagner out there with Edge Coop. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And the thing is, you don't have a whole lot of cap space sitting on the bench if you say in the nickel we're going to take Quay off the field, right? I mean, he's got that first year or first contract there, so it's not like he's $8 million against the cap sitting on the bench. You roll him in with the 4-3, and like you said, man, these guys are going to get banged up. They're going to get banged up.
I'm with Drew D. I'm convinced Bobby Wagner will never fall off.
And people were going,
"What are you?" Our first 65-year-old linebacker in the NFL, right?
Right. And people were probably saying, "What do you mean, Drew?" I'll tell you what he means, and I'll try to pull it up here too. But 90.1 PFF grade, guys. He was the top graded linebacker this year. And again, we were standing on the table wanting that dude this offseason. Here's what's crazy. They've got Dre Greenlaw higher than him. They got Nick Bolton higher than him, probably because of the age. But look at these PFF grades, man. And his projection, listen, if he comes back, it'll probably be more than this. But the projection is 1 year, $5 million. I would be willing to give Bobby Wagner $10 million if you could tell me he's going to play somewhere between that 82.4 in 2023 and that 90.1. And put him right in the middle of that defense with Edgerrin Cooper. And just like what we talked about with someone like Davante Adams being able to spill a little knowledge into those young receivers, could you imagine Bobby Wagner in Edgerrin Cooper's ear the entire time? That's exciting stuff, man. That's really exciting. So, again, Bobby Wagner at the top of the list. Second is guard Kevin Zeitler, 86.8. Once again, 34 years old as well. And when you hear that, those are the 2 oldest on my short list. You think, Clayton, that's way too old. Okay, then you can't complain about penalties and you can't complain about mental mistakes then, because that's the reason you're making those mistakes is you've got the youngest team in the league. You need to sprinkle in a little veteran here, a little veteran there, right? If you were to go get a Kevin Zeitler and plug him in at guard, then you can, like I said, you've got, imagine this, Tim. Imagine you took Elton, moved him to center, and then you signed Kevin Zeitler for the right price once again, and you plugged him in at left guard, and you let Sean Ryan and Jordan Morgan battle out right guard again. Well, you're good with that depth. Think of the Philly game. That injury happens again to your left guard. You would have Sean Ryan or Jordan Morgan stepping in as opposed to Kadeem Telford and Emilio's guy there, Travis Glover. So, again, that's just the way I'm kind of looking at that is you need a little veteran leadership. Those are 2 guys I would be okay with for the right price. Third on that list is wide receiver Chris Godwin. Kind of goes without saying. 86.3 PFF grade. Matter of fact, let me back up. I want to show you guys these real quick as we go, and then we got to wrap up pretty quick here. Here is our boy Kevin Zeitler. Look at the PFF grade. 74, 71, 86, played 1,000 snaps last year. Oh, by the way, if you poach him away from the Detroit Lions, you make their offensive line just a little bit weaker, right? So another aspect of that. Chris Godwin, wide receiver, is next on my list, third. He's my favorite receiver of this bunch personally, just because they're saying they're really, really confident the ankle's good to go. His PFF grade 75, 77, then last year 86 before he got hurt. I think he's a solid receiver. He's 28 years old. Give him a 3-year deal. It's really a 2. When he gets 30, if he falls off, you cut bait, you free up a little cap space, and you move on, right? Next is center Drew Dowman. This is why I say these are not in the order of importance for me. They're in the order of PFF grade. Drew Dowman's probably at the top of my list. Now, I'm not saying you overpay for him, but he's the guy that I would like to see them sign and bring in a center. And I wouldn't be saying this if we had a solid center class, but there are 0 center prospects in the top 100 as it sits right now. There may be somebody emerge. This may be 3 Hall of Fame center class later in the draft. I'm just saying on the surface, it doesn't seem like it's very loaded with top-end talent. So Drew Dowman for me, 82 last year, Tim, 78 this year. That's probably at the top of my shopping list this year, man.
I would agree.
And he's 26 years old.
And he's a true center.
Right.
You know, that's the other thing. Like, I'm looking for a true center, unless it's someone we already have on the team, because we got a couple of guys that can play everywhere. You know.
Mm-hmm. Look what Deadfish says. Zeitler was born in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Waukesha, is that how you say it? Waukesha, right?
Waukesha, yeah, there you go.
He attended Wisconsin Lutheran High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and played for Wisconsin Lutheran Vikings high school football team. So you got a little Wisconsin ties there. I'm telling you, hey, Drew, come on home. Or not Drew, I'm sorry. Zeitler, come on home. 1 year deal. Let's see if we can win you a Super Bowl, right? Now, here's a problem. Detroit's closer than we are right now at the Super Bowl. Yeah. And I can see them being like, well, you sure you want to go over there? So that'd be
he might sign whatever they offer him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just run it back another year. So, yeah.
Yeah. Crossfire says Dowman would be awesome. I agree, man. To me, it makes sense. Now, again, don't overpay, right? You're willing to overpay for McKinney, although they didn't. You're willing to overpay for Josh Jacobs, although they didn't. That's why I'm holding out hope, too. If you go after a guy day one like Goody does, it's like when he got Preston and Zadarius, and I think Adrian Amos that year, and he handled it the same way this year with Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. It's like, that's my dude. I'm going in. Here's our offer. Do you want it or not? And see if they sign, right? Press right off the bat.
Yep.
And it worked. So maybe you do that with Drew. I don't know. Next on the list is Trey Smith. He's a guard. This one's going to be tough for me because they're saying projections 4-year, $20 million. His PFF grade 72, 74, 78. He's one of the great young guards in the league, $25 million. I think that's going to be out of our price range, but I had to put him on the list out of respect for, boy, he would be probably, if you could say, Clayton, you could pick any of these guys, right? He'd be at the top of my list because you'd have him, you know, but I just don't
talk about this with Emilio last night, and he kind of agreed, like, we can't afford to give this dude the bag like that.
Can't. You know? Yeah, definitely. And somebody probably will, Tim. They probably will.
Oh, yeah.
Next is tackle Alaric Jackson. We already kind of hit on him a little bit. We won't spend a whole lot of time there, but Alaric Jackson is on my big board of free agents here, my final list, 77.2. He's gotten better every year. And again, we kind of talked about this, how he could possibly play left guard. He's 26 years old, so he's not like 31 having to switch positions. So that might be a possibility there. Next, we're getting into the cornerback range. Again, these are in order of PFF grades. Next on the list would be Carlton Davis from Detroit. Projection is 3 years, $14 million per. His PFF grade 65, 63, and then this last year 74. Not to $14 million. Would not do it.
No.
But if you can get him on a good deal, I would like to have him on the team for sure. And if I remember correctly, I think I made some notes here. Carlton Davis is an outside corner. Okay, so let's pretend like Jair Alexander is gone. Honestly, more time goes by, Tim, I don't think he's going to be gone. I'm kind of leaning towards I think they're going to bring him back. Could be wrong, but we'll see. Carlton Davis would play outside. Next on the list is Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy, his PFF grade 66, dropped to a 58, then went up to a 73 there with Minnesota last year. His projection $17 million per on a 3-year deal. Again, not willing to give that kind of money, but he is a slot corner. He's got slot experience. So that's a guy that could potentially fill in at the slot along with Javon Bullard there. And then the next one is DJ Reed. And I know people get really excited about DJ Reed. I know Emilio is. His PFF grades, man, 72, 77, and then 70 this year. So I can see where there's excitement there. DJ Reed is an outside corner mostly as well. So he's a dude who would play outside. Javon would stay in the slot in that regard. Tim, you want anything to add to those corners we just mentioned there, man? Carlton Davis, Byron Murphy, DJ Reed. Again, I think they would be great additions, but that's a lot of money, man. A lot of money.
Yeah. What about Charvarius Ward?
Yeah, for Charvarius, I didn't list him because look at the drop-off there, man. I mean, when you go from 81 to 84 and now to 56, that makes me a little nervous, right? At $14 million per. For the right price, I'd be okay with any of these top-end guys. But
so with Ward, the thing is, I know he battled injury this season, and he also, had the death of a child. He lost a child this year. So that's you got to think some of those things attribute to the lower snap counts, right? He probably missed some time for personal reasons, and just dealing with the mentals of processing something like that. So. Yeah, I just kind of look at a guy like that and think like, man, maybe a change of scenery at this stage in his career, like we could unlock one last push, but I think the money's probably too steep, like you said. I don't think we can go that high for a guy like him, but he'd probably be the bottom of my list of these free agent corners, but someone that I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah, when you kind of put all that into perspective, it does make sense, right? He's 28. So you're kind of thinking, is that the wall that he hit this year? But when you're dealing with something like that, I mean, last year, guys, he was number 1 in the NFL with PFF win above replacement at 1.01. I mean, he was dominant. So
we've seen it. Hey, Josh Jacobs had a down year. He came to Green Bay and had a career year. I don't put it past a guy like Ward to do the same thing, but it's the contract that gets me those numbers.
Yeah, and to really cross-check myself here. If the 56.2 is what's worrying me, then you got to take into account that's the one that does not belong here, right? It's just if it was in the middle, I'd be a little more comfortable. But you always worry about that wall, and then you think of Goody getting rid of players 1 year too early rather than 1 year too late. But, yeah, you guys are probably right, man. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and plays like the 2022 or 2023 version of Charvarius Ward. So, yeah, you got that right, Joseph. I'd be a walking mummy if I lost one of my kids. I don't know how these guys do it, man, to go out there and try to perform on a big stage.
That's why it was so crazy, the type of crap Devondre Campbell was pulling in San Francisco. You think about it. I mean, they had a player that got shot in missed game and came back and played, and you got Charvarius Ward who loses his child and comes back and plays for that team. And then you got Dre Campbell who's mad because somebody took away my playing time.
Yeah, get the hell away from me. Charvarius Ward playing after he lost a child. And like you said, Ricky Pearsall getting shot, and that was the reason Trent Williams stopped his holdout. Like, man, I looked over at that dude trying to get back on the field after getting shot, and I'm going, what the hell am I doing? And then you got Dre over going, they said I wasn't good enough to play.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Bye, Dre.
Yeah. I worry about him a little bit, to be honest with you, man. You start acting like that, and the next thing you know, you look up and there's problems after football, CTE, all that stuff. I hope that's not the case, but that's why I try not to critique too harshly. But anyone who does, boy, he's giving them plenty of ammo. There's no doubt about that. Last one we'll hit, and we'll get out of here, is guard. This Tristan, let me find it here. Actually, he may be listed as a center on here. This is what I was talking about the other day. It was kind of not – he's not listed. I found a guy, Tristan Colon Castillo, if I'm saying that right. They're listing him as a guard, but they were saying he could play center. And the reason I found him was on the Spot Track free agent list, as he was on there. So let me just pull him up real quick if I can find him. Here we go, Tristan Colon Castillo. And we'll just pull up his PFF page here, and let's see if I'm off base with it. I hate that they changed this look. It drives me insane, man. I don't understand. It's definitely
more difficult to it's the way they did this.
What are we doing, man? You guys had something good going here.
So he's a right guard, primarily a right guard.
Yeah, and they listed him as he could play center, according to Spot Track. So I don't know if he maybe had college experience playing center or what, but his PFF grade was a 71 this year, so he was the 29th highest graded guard in football. Pretty even across the board with a pass blocking grade of 65.9, run blocking of 68.5. So that's kind of where he sits. That's the other guy I wanted to mention. because, again, he didn't pop up on the free agent list. However, he was on the free agent list for Spot Track. So that's my big board in terms of free agents that, hey, I would be okay if the Packers went after these guys. Linebacker Bobby Wagner, guard Kevin Zeitler, wide receiver Chris Godwin, center Drew Dowman, guard Trey Smith, tackle Alaric Jackson, cornerbacks Carlton Davis, Byron Murphy, and DJ Reed, linebacker Dre Greenlaw. We didn't even hit on him, did we? Dre Greenlaw, 73.1. I'm not as big on him as I am other I'm not as big on him as I am other linebackers that are available, Tim. But let me just show y'all Dre Greenlaw real quick, and I'll explain why too. When you look at the PFF grade here for Dre Greenlaw, 79.6, 73, and then this year 82, but it was only 34 snaps, right? So, you're kind of getting in that area of 79 to 73. Okay, is he going to drop off? You've got to throw those 34 snaps out. He's 27 years old. He'll be 28 this year. So you would think he's got at least a couple more years of football in him. Not everybody's like Bobby Wagner. They're going to play till they're 112, right? So I don't know, man. Achilles, that worries me a little bit. If you can get him for $6 million, I'd be all over it. But he's on the list too, so keep an eye out for him.
That was just so crazy to see that happen.
Yeah,
in the Super Bowl like that. Like he had to have torn something prior to that, and then and to run out on the field, and it just finished. But I'm with you. I'd probably stay away from Greenlaw, as crazy as that sounds, because the track record's pretty good with him. But no, I'd probably stay away from him.
Yeah, here we go. Crossfire says Greenlaw got hurt again after coming back from the Achilles or ACL. I did not know that. So did he get banged up again? That's wild. So, like Drew D says, the dreaded Achilles. Man, Achilles it's a different animal, dude.
That explains the 34 snaps in 2024 for sure. Got it.
All right, there you go, guys. Like I said, we just wanted to hit on some of the free agents. I didn't want to start on the rookie tackles or the draft, the tackles entering the draft, because it's an extensive list, and we want to have time to do that. So if we do a show tonight, we will dive into the upcoming rookie class of offensive tackles, and then we may start into the linebacker position a little bit deeper and give you guys a look at some of the rookies there. But if we don't do a show tonight, then we'll see you tomorrow morning for Good Morning Lambeau. Tim, I'll let you know as soon as we make a decision. I'll go down and ask the boss right now, what's the plan? So appreciate
Say
your
hi
time.
to Mandy for us. Say hi to the boss.
Hey, absolutely will do, man. Drew D says, man, I love shows like this. So much good info. I learned a lot. Hey, appreciate the information you brung in the chat too, Drew, along with everybody else. You guys are appreciated more than you know. So y'all have a great day. We'll be back either tonight or tomorrow morning. Be on the lookout on the YouTube homepage there. You'll just see it when it is scheduled. I won't schedule it till I know for sure. So as soon as you get that notification that a live stream has been scheduled, you'll know exactly when the next show is going to be. Hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day.
There we go. We out.
Bye, guys.